I was on mute the whole time. You guys, I was totally talking. Didn't even realize I was on mute. Well, anyway. Good morning. So I'm gonna record this because it looks like we're missing some folks. That way they can listen to the recording. But our objective today is a couple things. One is we want to talk about the quality improvement projects. I'll walk you through the outline. And I'll show you the Google Docs area where you can sign up for your time slot as well. So everybody's, clear on that. Let's make sure you can get into that and all that good stuff. And then I wanted to talk about also setting up a biospatial walkthrough, because we didn't have enough folks enrolled in biospatial yet to really be effective while we were together. So Johnny and I talked about that briefly, and we thought that might be a good idea. So based on who's on the call right now, how many of you are in biospatial? Like you're in, or let me flip that around. How many of you are not in biospatial yet? So just go ahead and unmic yourself and let me know.
I am not in biospatial. I got the link. It expired. I've been meaning to get a hold of you to get a new one, and I just figured I'd wait till the meeting today.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to punt that to Johnny because I don't have those abilities to let you in, but Johnny does. So you're gonna want to shoot Johnny an email, and he'll get you a new unexpired link. So Megan's not in. Anybody else not in biospatial?
This is Brian. I'm not in either. I haven't had any links or anything either.
Okay, good to know. All right, I have the feeling you're not alone. So this is something we need to tackle and make sure we get everybody access to. So that's going to be one of my my top objectives. So what will happen is I'm going to I'll communicate with Johnny today, and then what will happen is we'll start getting you guys into biospatial, because that's the first step. So like Megan had mentioned, you'll get a link. It will expire, so you'll need to use the link to get in. And then once you get in, be sure you save the biospatial link in your browser. I don't know about you, but with so much technology, if I go somewhere and I set up my account and I don't save it on my browser, I'll go back to it and I've completely forgotten everything. So be sure you bookmark it in your browser so you can go right back there and save your password somewhere. So we'll get you into biospatial, and then what I'll do is it'd probably be best if I create a doodle poll. That way everybody can have a say in when we do the training. We'll purposely schedule it at the very earliest end of May. That way it gives you guys time to get into biospatial and everybody will have access, because the key will be you need to have access to do this training effectively. So we'll look at like end of May, beginning of June. It'll be just an hour or so of training. It won't be anything where you'll be sitting behind the computer forever, but we'll make it so you can come in, you can do the training. It'll be hands-on, so it'll be in a Zoom like this. You'll have your biospatial open and we'll be walking you through how to do things. If anybody has any suggestions on how to do it a little more thoughtfully, let me know. And I will definitely, I'll definitely take that into account when we design this training. And then what will happen from there is, remember, we're here for open office hours. You can email us anytime, and you can just schedule a time to come in with us and we'll work through things with you. So there's always an open door for that. So you'll see that doodle poll come out soon, and we'll get biospatial training together. We'll get it going. The other thing I wanted to mention, moving on from biospatial, is connecting with your reps. So many of you now know who your rep is for your electronic patient care reporting system. So whether it be ImageTrend and it's Johnny, or ESO and it's Darren, or Sancio and it's Don and James, you now have the contact info for those folks. So feel free to leverage that. These folks are your reps. So you've already paid into that software and you have full access to the person that your rep would be. So if you're doing work on the back end and you start working on your project and you need to do something, or you would need to even look into something on the back end of your EPCR platform, whether that be ImageTrend, ESO, or Sancio, you can reach out to them and they will help you along with that. Would Johnny be open to doing a short help session on biospatial if I wanted to pull some data but wasn't exact? Yes, absolutely. And again, this is why we have a cohort, is if you have a project or you're looking at something and you just want some help with it, that's why we're here. So yes, just shoot an email and we'll get it scheduled. Or if it's really, really Johnny-ish, like it's all data, it might just be Johnny, but feel free to include me and I'll pop in. Good. So yeah, be sure you're leveraging your representatives, whoever they are. If you've lost their email or don't have their contact info, let me know. I can always share that information with you. And then moving on to the QI projects. So one of the things that we did when we were together in Gaylord is we started outlining what your projects would look like. And many of you kind of settled on an idea of what you thought would be a good project. And from what I heard from each of you, your project sounded great. So now it's time to put pen to paper and submit something that officially says what you're working on. There's a couple reasons for this. One is when you're forced to write something down, sometimes you get even further clarity, right? So I'm kind of forcing you to think about, okay, why are you doing it? How are you doing it? And it's gonna push you into the details of the project. The other thing that can easily be forgotten is, excuse me, what are you measuring? So, it could be as simple as, I could use, let's use Nordic's project. So Lisa is looking at syncing her PCR system to her monitors, right? And so what Lisa might measure is not how many monitors are synced to her PCR system, but maybe she's measuring how many sets of vitals are input into the system before the project and after the project, right? So that could be something that she would be measuring with that project. So we have to be thoughtful on what we're measuring to show that what you're doing is actually making, a quality improvement, right? So that's one example. Another example is another group maybe looking at their percentage of hypoglycemia in the NEMSQA measures, successful measurement and documentation of hypoglycemia and the potential treatments that go along with the NEMSQA measure. So, you're measuring that before and after. That's a little bit easier, right? Because that's intuitive. Oh, I'm measuring NEMSQA measure, and forgive me, I've forgotten the number now. But I think it was hypoglycemia 1. I'm measuring the percent true and unknown before and the percent true and unknown after. And maybe you even get even more granular with that and you look specifically at, so in addition, I'm looking at the success rate of my crews entering the blood glucose level, and you're going to hone in on that. So you can take this project beyond just the NEMSQA measures if you like. So there's some ideas there on what metrics you would measure. And then the last question is what specific quality improvements will be accomplished? How do these quality improvements impact Michigan data reporting? So the reason I'm asking this question is to bring it back full circle. So it reminds you why you're doing the project, right? And why you're in this cohort. And this cohort is all about finding a best practice and improving that best practice. So if we improve a best practice, this is something we can then share with our colleagues, and overall, we're going to improve Michigan data reporting. Now, at the bottom of the sheet is the link to the Google Doc that will take you in to sign up for the Google Doc. This is a live link share. So if you're in Google Docs, you will be able to enter without an issue. So what I'll have you guys do is, this is in Word format. I've sent it out. I'll upload it into our Google shared drive as well. So it's in there. But you can just take this and start filling it in yourselves. One of the questions that I was asked, that's a really good question, is, what are the specific requirements for presentation? And that's a really good question. I guess I hadn't really thought about outlining that. And I think the reason behind that is I want you to have creative reign over how you present. But I would highly encourage, like, for example, when you're presenting, having a way to present to the audience what you measured, right? So you'll likely need some PowerPoint slides that are going to display that, or something to display to the group. Hey, this is what we measured. These are numbers. This is where we started. This is where we ended. You're going to need something beyond just verbal. So I would definitely put together like a very short slide deck in PowerPoint, or if you use Canva. I'm a huge fan of Canva because the slides are incredible. You can create it in there and then export it into PowerPoint. So a couple slides, you have 20 minutes. Now, how you convey the information is totally up to you. So it can be a traditional presentation where you talk and use your slides. It could be, you don't use slides most of the time, and it's kind of an interactive discussion. You can try and engage the audience if you'd like. Maybe you start with a question like, how are you doing this? And you engage the audience, or you do a poll, because remember, there's polling functions in Zoom. However you want to engage the audience. Your timeline is 20 minutes, and I encourage folks to leave time for questions at the end. So 15 minutes would probably be a sweet spot for the presentation. So maybe running through it once or twice before you hop on to present. And then we can have time for questions, Q&A. If you go a little under, a little over, it's not the end of the world. It would be great if you if you put your project in a format where it's shareable. So thinking to the future, that's why the slides would probably be great. Have your work somewhere where, like, if I tap you later for a conference and there's an opportunity for you to present, you have your data somewhere that's already, it exists in a format where you could easily share it with others. I think that's a really good idea. So keep that in mind as you're creating this. Canva is what the name of the platform is. It lets you do all things, Rick. So templates, PowerPoints, you could even create a meme in there. You can do all kinds of things in Canva. You can create assignments in there, and then you can export them. It is paid, but it's not crazy expensive. I think it's like $10 or something a month. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah. So great platform for project work, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to stop there and open the floor for questions, and then we'll go move into the Google Doc. So now is the time to kind of talk about, like, if you're unsure about your project, or there's something that I've forgotten to convey in the assignment, or how it's presented, now would be a good time to chat about that. Does everybody feel comfortable with their projects?
I don't, just the entire implementation of a QA, a proper QA, or what is deemed proper QA, QI process overall. Can that be a project, or is that way too broad?
I don't think that's too broad, and I like that idea, because if you don't have a process and you're implementing it, I think that'd be great. My encouragement would be to think about how you could be innovative in the rule space with it.
Okay.
So maybe you do something innovative. And we could talk on the side about some of the work I've done previously. I mean,
Okay.
I've been in a few QI positions where we've done some pretty interesting things, some of which landed and some of which didn't.
Well, there's my project then, or our project.
Yeah, I like it. And then just start thinking about, think about too, because it is a big project, think about what your metrics are, and maybe you hone in on like 2 or 3 overall measurements, right? Because that's going to impact your whole agency. So think about your metrics that way. I like it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Did I send out the contact info? Do you guys have each other's emails? It briefly crossed my mind. I want to say I did, but I'm not sure now. So can you open a file and email each other at this point?
I haven't seen an updated list or anything yet.
Okay, let me make sure I do that today, because I may not have. I know we talked about it and I was gonna do it, but I don't know if I did. So let me send you the contact spreadsheet. I will also make sure that is in Google as well. So that way you can access each other. You can shoot each other emails if you want to connect with somebody. I believe it has phone numbers on it too. So you should be able to contact everybody by phone as well. Good. Okay. Well, I'll let you guys keep thinking. I'm going to pull up the Google Drive doc so you guys can take a peek at what this looks like. And I see, oh, I see folks have already signed up. Good for you. All right. Let's try that again. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Can everybody see that? So this is the Google Doc. So when you go into this document, whether you access it from the assignment, an email, or you go into Google Drive to access this, if you look at the bottom here, there are tabs. So if February 15th, if you want to go first and you want to get it done, you can sign up, and Rick has already signed up. So go Rick. Okay. So slot 1, slot 2, and slot 3, 20 minutes each. So let's say, you know, February 15th doesn't work and I feel like I'm going to need extra time. I'm going to sign up for May 16th, right? And then I'll pick my slot in May 16th. So by May 12th, get in here and make sure you sign up. And that way you have your slot, and then make note of what your time slot is. I want to see everybody signed up by then. That way we know when everybody's presenting. So those align with the dates that we picked when we were together. So that in a nutshell is the Google Doc, and that's how you sign up for your time slot. Any questions about the Google sign-in sheet? No? Okay. So the thing that I also wanted to address today and just open the floor for is there anything that you're feeling still a bit uncomfortable with? And we can leave biospatial off the table because many of you haven't gotten in yet. But outside of biospatial, is there anything that you feel uncomfortable with that we could do a little bit more training in? Stop share. Silence. Okay. Okay, no worries. Well, feel free to type away.
Hey, Andrea, on the biospatial thing, the only concern I have is I don't know how we're going to do it when it's not in person. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to do a Zoom meeting and use the computer while you're doing the Zoom meeting. And I mean, I'm pretty technologically sound, but as far as that type of thing, I don't know how especially if it's more than one-on-one, it would be like if you have, like today, there's 9 of us here and you're trying to share screens and try to, you know, use your computer to do your portion of biospatial, and
That's
it's
a good
going
point.
to be quite the cumbersome thing to figure out. I don't, like I said, I'm not 100% sure, but it just seems like it would be pretty hard.
That's a good point, Rick. And you know, now that you say that, I agree. And I think part of the problem we had when we were together is there's one Johnny and there were 30 of us, right? Well, not really 30 well, yeah, 30 for biospatial. So how do we distribute Johnny's time? So maybe we pivot away from, let me think about this. I know there are some training resources on the biospatial website that I could share with the group that you could watch on your own, and then we could schedule time slots for everybody, because it is kind of a one-on-one. situation. Maybe 2, maybe 3, but once we get a big group and everybody's at a different stage, you're right, it might get a little bit. The other thing I'm thinking too is the logistical challenge of us sharing the screen and then you having to minimize the screen and go into your own biospatial might not be optimal. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let's hear from others. Do you feel like it would be better to be in person or to be virtual and have an appointment? What is going to be the best learning situation for you?
Am I to understand that for the presentation, you're going to be using biospatial live during your presentation? Is that what Rick is saying?
The QI presentations?
Mm-hmm.
No, so biospatial is separate from the QI presentation. Your QI presentation is just your PowerPoint slides and how you present it. Now, if you use biospatial data in your QI presentation, then great. But this is just training on how to use biospatial and how best you would learn biospatial.
Okay, and that's what we're discussing right now is
the
difficulty level in the training being on Zoom.
How we're going to train. Because
Okay.
if we do it virtually and I share my screen with you, right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to be looking at my screen and you're also going to have biospatial open on your end.
Mm-hmm.
So is it better to do it in person? Is it better to do it by appointment only, where maybe you have an individual time slot? Even if you do an appointment, you're still going to have to navigate Johnny showing you, right, and walking you through it and you doing it. Because biospatial is hands-on. Like if you don't go in there and do your own reports and play around, it's going to be really hard to learn. It's not like when you pull data, right? Many of you already know this, you have to pull the data to kind of learn how to pull the data. So if we bore you with click here and pull this report, that's not going to be enough. You're going to have to get in there and then pull the report. So
I think individually would be a better idea then. If we're pulling individual data and our own, if we're pulling data for our own agency, and I think it's probably a good idea to, individual. I mean, maybe we could have a general training and have a discussion via Zoom as a group for like 10-15 minutes. And then we set up appointments and I'll do an individual thing. I don't know.
Okay. And Catherine, I just saw your feedback as well. Yeah, the second computer is going to be it's going to be a challenge.
I'm with Catherine too. And in person somehow, if we could just do it for the day, would be my preference too, because that way we're all together and we can, I don't say feed off each other, but we can, I'm sure other people have things that I'm not thinking of and vice versa.
Yeah, I don't mind that idea. I think in person would be good. What we can do, so one of the things I'm thinking is if we do it in person, we schedule this far enough out so people can plan. And then if someone can't come down for whatever reason, we can schedule an individual appointment. So if you can't make that in person, then we can schedule an individual appointment. Was Gaylord a good location? I felt like that was kind of a good common ground for, I would say, the majority of folks. But would you say going back to Gaylord was a good location for most? And yes, I know Upper Peninsula is a whole different story. So I know that's a hike for Lisa and Matt.
Gaylord works for me. I mean, it's really not too bad. I mean, it's 4.5, 5-hour drive. It's not really too bad. And I have friends and family in that area. So
Okay.
I can make it happen.
Good. Okay.
I agree. I didn't have any issue with Gaylord. It wasn't
Okay.
too terrible of a drive. For sure.
Good. So I'll need to check the budget to make sure that we have money in the budget, because this is obviously an unanticipated additional day. So let me look into that, make sure we have funding, because of course we would reimburse you for mileage. We would provide a hotel room for those that are traveling a distance. And then what we can do is when we schedule it, if you cannot attend, for whatever reason, we'll set up an individual appointment for you where you can do it virtually. Based on what we've talked about today and how we've hashed it out, I will disencourage that. And the reason for that is it will be extremely difficult unless you have 2 screens to do the training effectively. Even if it's one-on-one, it's going to be challenging. You will get much more out of coming in person. The other thing to think about too is if we're in person and we're all together, what might happen is we're going to still need to kind of shuffle in and shuffle out because there's one Johnny. So we'll need to think about how we do that thoughtfully. We'll probably do some group training where Johnny trains us on a bunch of things, just kind of in short, and then break apart and run reports, and then come back and do a group, and then break apart and run reports. I think that would probably be the best way to do it. So I guess the next big question is summer is coming and we want to do an in-person probably sooner rather than later. Is there going to be a best time to do this? Should I doodle it? Do you think doodle is going to be the most effective way to get this out? I'm happy to send like an in-person day doodle. I think doodle lets me do that. I'll have to look though, because it's usually by appointment, but I think you can do days. Either that or I'll just email it and have everybody vote kind of thing. But are we gravitating towards a month? Like, is June going to be problematic for anybody if we do it in June? And is there specific days of the week that are better than others? I will likely avoid Fridays because we are in summer and most people take long weekends if they're going to in the summer. Okay. Good. Well, I will send out either a doodle or a email poll and get that started, and I'll run this by Johnny and make sure he's comfortable with it as well. Because I don't see him. Yeah, I don't see him here this morning. So I will run that by him. I'll check the budget and then look for an email from me so we can get that date set up. We'll go back to Gaylord. I think that worked really well. So more to come there. And outside of that, I mean, I don't want to take up any additional amount of time. If you guys, I'm sure, have 1,000 other things to get to. I'm going to hang out though. If you have questions about your project or anything that you want to talk about, I'm just going to stay on and I will stop recording.